Justice John Roberts is now the focus of a lawsuit that is intending to bring some balance and integrity back to the nation's highest court. A pro-Trump legal group founded by White House aide Stephen Miller is suing Supreme Court Justice John Roberts. The lawsuit was filed by America First Legal. It argues that records held by the Roberts-led U.S. Judicial Conference should be subject to the Freedom of Information Act request or FOIA requests as a result. AFL cited in its lawsuit recent actions taken by both the Judicial Conference and Administrative Office in 2023 to accommodate requests from Congress to investigate allegations of ethical improprieties by Justices Thomas and Alito, and subsequently to create or adopt an ethics code for justices on the High Court. Now, the lawsuit says, under our constitutional tradition, accommodations with Congress are the province of the executive branch, AFL said, adding, quote, the Judicial Conference and the Administrative Office are therefore executive agencies. It must therefore be overseen by the President, not the courts.
There are three things going on here which are important to talk about. Number one is a Freedom of Information Act issue. Basically, this pro-Trump law group has been trying to get information, whether it's email, text, phone call, meetings, etc., from the Supreme Court, and they just have not been forthcoming. And that's part of the reason for the lawsuit. That legal group wants the communication records between Congress and Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts. That's one thing. Another thing which is interesting is the fact that Congress approached the Chief Justice John Roberts directly, and Chief Justice John Roberts communicated directly with Congress in an attempt to get information on Justices Thomas and Alito. That is a problem because, as per the Constitution, those communications between Congress and the Supreme Court don't work that way. They've got to go through the executive branch, i.e. the president. In other words, if Congress has a question that they want to discuss with the Supreme Court, it has to be managed through the executive branch. This did not happen in this case, clearly, and that's another reason for the lawsuit. And finally, the other thing that's happening is there is a group that manages the functions of the Supreme Court, administrative functions, etc. That group is managed by the executive branch, i.e. the president. That didn't happen in this case. So you have to remember that Congress was attempting to get information that would be compromising on Justice Thomas and Justice Alito. This branch which manages the Supreme Court decided that they would change the rules of what these justices on the Supreme Court could do and could not do, as far as trips, gifts, etc. The decision on what to change as far as what Supreme Court justices can do is not a decision that's made by Congress, nor is it a decision that the Supreme Court can make by itself. That's under the purview of the executive branch, in other words, the president. However, in this case, and again, hence the lawsuit, the Supreme Court decided it would change its own rules. And that's a major problem. Big picture, what we're talking about is the Chief Justice, Republican, John Roberts, meeting with Democrat members of Congress to get dirt on fellow Republicans, in this case, Justices Thomas and Alito. And that's a big problem in and of itself. Nonetheless, I hope that does a better job of explaining exactly what's going on with this lawsuit. Let's listen to the rest of it.
Now, the lawsuit continues. Quote, plaintiffs for AFL argued in their lawsuit that the Judicial Conference's duties are executive functions, and functions they allege must be supervised by executive officers, aka Trump officers, who are appointed and accountable to other executive officers. Now, further, AFL argued that the courts definitively do not create agencies to exercise functions beyond resolving cases or controversies or administratively supporting those functions. Now, in AFL's view, this is also sufficient to put the administrative office of the U.S. courts, as is overseen by the Judicial Conference, under the executive branch as well. AFL argued that the proposed framework preserves the separation of powers, but also keeps the court out of politics.
This case is a big deal, not just because it's a lawsuit, not just because this is a pro-Trump legal group going after Chief Justice John Roberts for improprieties and to reset the balance between Congress, the Supreme Court, and the executive branch, but because it signals everybody that this is the dawn of a new era, specifically with regards to Republicans using lawfare. You have to understand that for decades, Republicans have not. We've just gone along to get along and take it on the chin like a chump. Democrats have used lawfare for decades to go after anybody and everybody. And now Republicans are saying, okay, if that's how we're going to play in this playground, then we're going to use lawfare. We're just going to use it on steroids. And I think that's a very good thing for two reasons. One would be the effect it has on Republicans, meaning Republican voters, I believe, are going to be happy to see the fact that Republicans are willing and able to legally fight the good fight, which is a good thing for Republican voters. And the other thing is the effect it'll have on Democrats. I don't think Democrats were expecting this, and I don't think Democrats are quite prepared to handle it. They've just got into this habit of getting away with it because Republicans, like I said, haven't done anything to fight back, and now Republicans are. So I think that's really going to catch the Democrats off balance, and I think that will help Republicans in polling, which is extremely important as we get closer to 2026 and try to get a bigger Republican majority both in the House and the Senate. Hopefully you liked the video. It's been very difficult to find outside information on a story, which I think is a really big story, which is puzzling to me. Nonetheless, here it is. You like it, give it a thumbs up. Want to see more like this, then by all means subscribe. And if you know anybody interested in the subject, share it with them. As always, until next time, God bless. Love y'all.